Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully everyone can see us and hear us equally as well. We have been doing these webinars now on the survey results, oh gosh, now for almost a year. And there have been some challenges along the way, so hopefully our audio and visual is working well this afternoon for everyone. So my name's Janice Hurley. If we haven't met before, I've been in the industry now since, I don't know what, Tim, the dawn of time, it seems like. Long time. I've been with previously with bnbfinder.com for many years, went up to Vermont and ran an inn for a couple of years, back to bnbfinder.com, and then here at bnbfinder when we acquired the business back in April of 2018. 19, yeah. So it's great to be able to be here with all of you, and I'm going to run a couple of polls just to get a sense of who we have on the call with us today. We do have over 100 inns that are joining us, so we do have the call muted, but please feel free to ask questions as we're going through the question box that's on your screen. We love to have as interactive as possible session today. So Tim is going to be going and monitoring the questions as we go through. And then I'm also going to run polls just to get a sense of who we have on the call, and then we can relate those to the survey results that we're going through. So as I launch this poll, I'll have Tim go ahead and introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. My name's Tim Wilson, and like Janice, I've been in this industry also since the dawn of time, it seems. Spent 18 years with bnbfinder.com from '99 till 2017, at which point things were just a little too crazy, and so left and became a consultant with Whitestone Marketing for a couple of years. And then when Janice and Eric got a hold of bnbfinder and invited me to rejoin them, I couldn't say no. It was such a, I guess, great experience working with them in the past, and wanted to come over here to bnbfinder to do it all over again, but do it way better, and that's what we're doing. And so anyway, here at bnbfinder, I do manage the diamond collection and most of the sales aspects here for bnbfinder, and I see a lot of you here in our webinar that I've spoken with, so great to have you all here today.
Awesome. So the poll that I have up right now is just asking properties how many rooms they have, and I'm actually going to share these results just so folks can see, because as we go into the first couple of slides and I give you an idea of the innkeepers and the properties that responded back, that'll give you an idea so you can compare the results. So the majority of properties that are on the call today have between 6 to 10 rooms, and then more than 10 or 4 to 6. So that just gives you an idea of when we're looking at other polling results, because we're going to do some live polls as we go through. That'll just give you some benchmarks. And I would also love to know what region you're located in, because we, just to give you a little bit of background on the survey for those of you who haven't attended one of these sessions before, we started running surveys with bnbfinder.com when Tim and I were both there, really right after the recession hit back in 2008. And the big reason for that was because we had the largest database at the time of both travelers and innkeepers. And what's great about that is that it allowed us to really keep a pulse on what the travelers were saying their traveling behavior was going to be, and then what innkeepers were experiencing. And we ran those quarterly throughout the entire time that we were with bnbfinder.com. And when we started bnbfinder, after we acquired the business from Mary and started working together, of course, when the pandemic hit, we realized, this is definitely an opportunity for us to be able to, again, reach out to the travelers and the innkeepers and really start to keep a pulse on what's happening. So whenever I talk about these survey results, or whenever we launch a survey, I know that all of you have got many emails from me over the last few weeks. And really the reason why we encourage participation is not only because, of course, it's a larger sample size and that's great for the data, but also because when we get a large enough sample size from a certain area, then we're able to go in and present results and share data for that specific location. So it's really, one of the big reasons why I encourage folks to participate. So just sharing this, this is very similar to what we saw in the survey results. I'm not surprised of the participation up in the Northeast and the Midwest. Of course, the Northeast, it has a large saturation. A lot of inns are located up there, so that makes a lot of sense. And then I drill it down all the way to, how many inns are located there, and then we can look at those results in relation to what the answers to the surveys have been. So I'm going to go in and share my screen here. Okay, so you should all be able to see the first slide there. We'll just make sure. Perfect. Okay.
We can see that.
So far, so good. I'm pretty impressed. I think GoToWebinar has definitely stepped up their game with the number of folks that are hosting webinars. So first slide here just gives you an idea of demographics and who answered the survey. So we had 130 properties, inns, that participated, average of 8 rooms, very similar to what we saw with the results of who has joined us on the call today. I didn't ask on how many years you've all been in business, but average years in business for the innkeepers that responded to the survey is 14 years. Similar to who's on the call today, with 30% of the properties responding from the Northeast and Southeast, and then down from there. Texas was the state that had the most inns that participated with 10. And so as we have that data and we're able to share it out and be really specific, I'd love to have the opportunity to do that. And what's interesting, of course, not surprising, is that the current season for properties who are responding right now, the majority of properties are in their slower season. So, if you are up in the Northeast and you aren't at in a ski destination, and even some of the ski destinations, of course, have seen some changes with COVID and regulations and things like that. So 82% of the properties who responded are in the middle of their slow season, unlike in our fall survey, where only 4% of you were, and second largest in their shoulder season. So because we're coming into what should be our peak season in our spring and summer, this is really, a great time for us to be able to look and understand what travelers are saying and what they're planning on for their travel behavior. So on the traveler side, we actually, out of the surveys that we've run since March of 2019, this is actually the largest response that we've had from travelers. And what I love about this is that, a lot of times when we share these survey results, innkeepers say, well, okay, this is great, but isn't it really skewed because these travelers are B&B goers? And the answer is not any longer, because when we share out the survey to be responded to, I'm not only sharing it out through our traveler database, but I'm also sharing it out through Facebook and some of our other social channels, where I can go in and be very specific and say, I want to share this out not only with our friends list or friends of friends, but outside of that group, so that we're getting a larger sample and a better mix of travelers. So not just travelers who are familiar with what the B&B experience is. As far as demographics, this is pretty standard, Gen X, Gen Y, and baby boomers, millennials, all continuing to be our our current demographic, although we are seeing some younger travelers coming into the space. And again, what matches up, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is because we're going to talk about this in detail further down in the presentation. But the majority, 24% of the travelers who responded are located in the Northeast. So we're going to talk a lot about trending locally, staycations, things like that, and what travelers are now looking at. So I have had this, and I thought about taking it out when I put together this presentation, but it just still is so applicable to where we are. And none of us could have imagined that, we would still be, where we are today. I remember when the pandemic first began, and we started to try and forecast out, when do we think travel is going to start to pick up? And at first, we were thinking, okay, maybe it's going to be June. And then, of course, summer came, and so many things have changed. And I read this quote as a successful human is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks others have thrown at them. And we could have never anticipated these bricks that have been thrown at us. But as an industry, I can honestly say that I am incredibly proud to be part of an industry like ours because of the immense support that has been shared since we've all been faced with this. And certainly through the vendors that are in our industry, I use Acorn as a great example of all of the different resources that they've been providing, our national associations and the education, and making sure that we're keeping abreast of all the things that have been changing, because that's one thing that has been incredibly difficult, is trying to keep up with everything that has constantly been changing over the last year. And I remember, when I first saw this in a Q4 launch newsletter that they had sent out, and I thought, this is so perfect, because, what they were asking and what they were putting out there to all of the innkeepers is, are you someone who's sitting on the beach, or are you on your board in the water waiting for the wave to come? Because we all know that when travel comes back 100%, that it's going to come back strong. And we've already seen signs of that with lots of travelers who previously weren't comfortable traveling. Now that a lot of the COVID guidelines have been shared out and it's really clear what everyone has done to adapt to this new normal, that it's going to come back strong. And I'm sure all of you have heard more than once about the new roaring 20s that are going to be coming. So we know that's the case, and what are we doing to be prepared for it? And how are we staying aware of what's happening? And in the presentation that I did for the fall survey results, I actually put this in here, and I kept it in for anyone who wasn't on that last session, because I think it's just such a good reminder for us as an industry of the ongoing challenges that we have with our identity to travelers, and making sure that travelers understand who we are and what we have to offer and what is a part of that. And this actually came to me in a newsletter that I got, and it was all about Jeep and a new Jeep that they had put out onto the market. And they actually had this as sweepstakes where you could win a stay in this bed and breakfast, which literally is a tent on top of the Jeep. And when I saw this, I thought, you've got to be kidding me. As if we haven't had enough challenges trying to explain what our offer is, what our value is, and what it means to stay at a true professionally run bed and breakfast. The fact that, here we are competing with a Jeep with a tent on its roof is no place in that for us. So just a good reminder of any of the additional challenges that we might have. So the way that I positioned the session today is I'm sharing results from our survey, both from the innkeeper perspective and then from the traveler. So I tried to align it so that we can look at the responses from the innkeepers and then how travelers responded to similar questions. And I can tell you that the amount of data that we got back, there is so much of it. And this is just the beginning of what I'm going to be sharing from the spring survey. After this session, which by the way, we are recording, and we will send you a copy of the recording so you don't have to worry about, keeping track of all the notes and everything today. We're going to be putting together some infographics, and we're going to be sending out sort of a light white paper that will have some of the additional responses that were in the others category, because a lot of the innkeepers that had responded back just shared so many great ideas. And of course, we can't fit them all into an hour here, but just some of the really creative things that they've done to adapt, and some of the new things that they're offering as far as specials and packages and all those types of things. So just wanted to mention that. So first off, looking at where are we at and what's the barometer on what the number of cancellations that innkeepers have seen. And the piece here that I think is really important to take away is that we're starting to trend down on the number of cancellations that properties are seeing. So, when we first started running this, of course, 75% or more of future bookings, or all future bookings, had been canceled. And that was due in part to travelers just having no idea of when they would be able to travel again. And we're starting to see that trend down, which is a really positive sign that travel is coming back and starting to come back. They're also not seeing an increase in cancellation, so basically remaining steady. That's great that that's also down. And of course, yes, we're in the slow season, so that skews it a bit. But as we know, travelers have travel booked out not just for the next month or 2 months, they are booking for future stays. So that's certainly relevant to these numbers that we're seeing here. So when we looked at for the properties who continue to have bookings cancel, really the cancellations that are happening and what they're seeing is really within the next 60 days. And that can be due to several reasons. Maybe their guests have gotten ill, maybe someone that is close to them has gotten ill. I mean, there could be a million different reasons why. But I think one of the things, and we're going to see this trend in some of the data that I'll share further on in the presentation, is that travelers are looking at future bookings. So they are feeling more confident in booking for travel ahead, where we haven't been seeing that in the previous months. And one thing that I want to point out on here too is that there are properties who responded and said that they haven't had any additional cancellations. And this was the biggest jump. So we're in every other survey that we've run since March of 2019, there were very few properties that said they had no cancellations at all. So to see this go up to 31% that have had no cancellations, that also is a really strong sign that things are improving. So I do actually want to run a quick poll here just to get a sense again of who we have on the call today and if you're seeing more reservations come through. So I'm going to launch that poll here in just a minute. So on the traveler side of it, we asked, are you planning travel? And if you canceled some of your travel plans, when are you planning to travel again? Because of course we know they've canceled, but are they going to plan to travel? So one of the things here that is different from some of the other surveys that we've run is 57% saying that they haven't planned travel in 2021. Now, again, it's only February, so is that surprising? If this was a little bit later in the year, that would probably be a little bit different. So when we run our summer survey, I'm sure we'll see that change. And one of the things that I wanted to have and point out here, just to help support that, is a couple of things. When you think about the travelers who are booking with you, and their confidence in being able to book and know that they have flexibility. Cancellation policies have come up time and time again, really since the pandemic happened. And it's really important that innkeepers, I'm going to go back, have adapted their cancellation policy. So when we asked the question, have you enforced your normal cancellation policy, so pre-COVID, the majority of properties, 49%, said no, cancel is needed with a full refund or a credit for a future stay. And that's up 8% from our fall survey. And if you look at what that was even from the earlier surveys, this is a trend that we've seen continue to increase. And that really is in a response to what travelers have been asking for, and really what's been led by other forms of travel. So you see it in the airlines with, no cancellation fees, no change fees, and really just providing that flexibility to instill that confidence that the traveler can book and not to be, concerned if they have to change their travel plans for whatever reason. And a lot of properties are also, saying no, cancel, we'll give you a refund, but also offering a gift card towards a future stay or a credit towards a future stay so that they can retain that business. And a couple of the properties who responded back, I just wanted to share this because this was in the other category where you wouldn't see it reflected in the survey results, is deposits are able to be used towards a future stay. I thought it was interesting that this property had it for Sunday through Thursday stays, so that can help for some of their non-weekend stays where they might potentially be booking up anyway. This property is extending 100% credit towards a stay, but it has to be booked by 12/31/21. And I thought that was really interesting because, a lot of the points and the different programs that I had participated in back when I used to travel all the time to go and see all of you at conferences, a lot of my status and a lot of things had got extended, but only extended through a certain period of time. And now if that it had gotten close to when some of them would have expired, a lot of companies have gone in and extended that period. So I think it's actually a good idea to put a time frame on that cancellation or when that credit needs to be used, because then that will encourage the stay to happen before the end of 2021. If you need to make an exception for one-offs for certain guests, that's fine, but I think that that's a really smart way to handle that. And another property shared that they are now only taking a $25 non-refundable deposit, which I thought was also really smart. That will help cover any cost of managing the reservation. And if the guests, they can now cancel up until 24 hours before, where a lot of properties would have that a week out or more. So just some interesting ways to be handling different cancellation policies. And Tim, I know Tim talks to hundreds of properties throughout the week and throughout the month. So if there's any anecdotes or any other suggestions that you've heard from properties, absolutely feel free at any time to share some of those.
I will do that. You've touched on all the big ones though, and that's I think the flexibility and the credits for the future stay. But I also agree with you on putting a cutoff on that. And if you need to work with folks, you absolutely can. But I think that protects you better too. So
absolutely. And I can say, I look back, and for those of you who know me and we've worked together over the years, I'd say, gosh, probably 75% of my time is spent on the road. So this has been the longest period of time in 15 years, 20 years that I have stayed in Austin, Texas. And as you can imagine, like many travelers, it didn't take long for me to start to get that feeling that, okay, I need to travel, I need to be out there. And I'm going to talk about this during today's session because I think it's really important. And it's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, in that, you know, for travelers who haven't taken that leap or haven't gone out and traveled yet, they have these misperceptions of what it really is like to be traveling right now. And I can say, of all the places that I've traveled back home to New England to visit family. I've traveled to Florida to visit my mom. I've traveled, most recently, believe it or not, I traveled to Disney World 2 weeks ago. A friend of mine had a free stay because her parents were going to take her, and her parents hadn't gotten the vaccine yet, and she didn't want the vacation to go unused. So I actually went, and part of it is I went out of pure curiosity of what they had done from an infrastructure perspective on how they dealt with the reopening of the park and all of the safety measures that they had put into place. So I was going really for a little bit of research, and I was fascinated by what they had done. And there wasn't one moment that I ever felt unsafe, whether it's been on a plane, whether it's been to something as big as a Disney World type of vacation, all the way down to, you know, different hotels that I've stayed in, different B&Bs. And I really feel like I need to start a blog to help share with folks that aren't comfortable traveling yet what it's really like to be traveling. So forward here. So for travelers, when we ask them, you know, once again, you know, when it is again deemed safe to travel, whether or not that is deemed safe by their state, if the regulations have been pulled back, if it's that they feel safe enough to travel, when are you likely to continue to travel? 10% said that they've never stopped traveling. The highest percentage says extremely likely, we can't wait to travel. And 21% likely didn't want to delay their plans, needed to, but they will continue to travel. So, you know, you can see here that it's representative that the majority of travelers either have continued to travel or are still planning to continue to travel. And we're starting to see this being reflected in what properties are reporting back to us. So we asked properties if they are starting to see more reservations. 76% of the inns that participated said that they are in fact seeing more reservations. So I'm going to launch a poll to get a sense of who we have on the call today and how that relates, and if all of you are starting to see reservations, more reservations coming in. And when I say more reservations, what I mean by that is, are you seeing more reservations than you've seen over the past several months? Because of course, we've seen ups and downs throughout the last several months, but are you starting to see more than you have than in the past, you know, the past quarter for future reservations? So we've got about 71% of you have voted. So I'm going to go ahead and give you one more minute. We got almost 80%. Okay, great. So 66% of you said yes, you are seeing more reservations coming in. Still 34% haven't seen more reservations coming in. So I'm also going to, just to get a little bit more of a sense for properties who are getting more reservations, what is the source of those bookings? So are they booking on your website? Are they booking over the phone? Are you seeing them coming in through online travel agents or directories? And part of the reason why I'm asking this is, from what I've heard, and I think Tim can probably agree with this, is, and what we have seen in our traveler survey results, is the desire to book direct and the desire to have that connection with the property that they're booking at. Because again, guests who've traveled to B&Bs historically have always had more questions than, you know, the average traveler who might be staying in a hotel chain where they know exactly what they're going to get when they go there. But what we've seen is definitely an influx in not only a traveler booking direct, but a traveler who is booking with the property over the phone. And that over the phone booking is really one of the toughest ones to be able to go in and show the value of that over the phone booking. When I say that, it's where did that over the phone booking originate from? Did they see your phone number on a directory and then they called you? You know, how did they get that number? And certainly there are different services that you can implement where you can track those calls. But I think it's really important when you're looking at the overall value of where you're marketing and where you're spending your marketing dollars, recognizing, you know, 50% of the properties on this call today are saying that they're getting those reservations that are coming in over the phone. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're measuring the value of your different marketing channels. So for the innkeepers that are having an increase in reservations, or they are starting to see reservations, what we ask them, you know, what months are your guests booking? And what is really interesting about this to me is when we ran this back in September and we asked innkeepers, you know, are you starting to see future bookings? The early winter months seemed really grim, the only way I can put it. And the reason being is that there was so few properties that were seeing any bookings for, you know, you take February, for example, and, you know, it was a very low percentage. Now, when we have rerun this survey, we're seeing properties, this has been up 51% from our fall survey. So what that tells us is that travelers may have been apprehensive to book that far in advance from the fall for early winter, but that has picked up. And the other steady trend that I want to point out on when innkeepers are seeing reservations is, and another piece that really, you know, instills a lot of hope in ongoing travel, is this after July 2021. And this is consistent when we asked for future reservations past the next 6 or 7 months from when we ran the fall survey. So much further into the future. And we are seeing a large percentage of travelers who are feeling more comfortable and what inns are starting to see past that date. So when we ask travelers, when you book your next vacation, what months do you plan to travel in? The positive piece about this is, you know, of course, winter tends to be a slower season anyway, but travelers feeling confident enough to book starting in April, and really strongest months that they're looking to book travel within that summer timeframe, really tells me that they're feeling more confident that things are going to start to improve quickly over the next 6 months. That summer travel, you know, travel will never be back to the normal that it was before, and we'll have a new normal, but it means that they feel confident about looking forward to their summer vacation and looking forward to making plans for that, which is definitely something that we want to see continue to trend. So when we ask travelers, you know, when do you plan to book? So, okay, we know that the months that you want to travel are spring and summer. And if innkeepers haven't started to see that trend, they haven't started to see those bookings come in, when are travelers going to start to make those reservations? So 9% of travelers said that they, you know, had traveled early winter. They're going to continue to travel. They'll continue to book those bookings. 19% are working on travel plans now. 12% in the next 30 to 60 days. A lot of the responses that I saw in the other category were about specials and packages and looking for deals And certainly a lot of properties are not in the position to be giving away a discount right now, but thinking about some value added packages and specials and things like that, which I'm going to give you some examples of some innkeepers that shared some. And of course, there are still several travelers that are still waiting for additional CDC guidelines because things have been changing, especially with the vaccine. And one thing that I'll point out too that I think is important to keep in mind is that the state regulations, of course, continue to change. And I really attribute that to some of the apprehension for those travelers who are still waiting for the CDC guidelines. Even though the guidelines have been set out, they are continuing to change. So for example, back when I traveled back home to see family in October, they had just implemented the state of Massachusetts at that time that you had to have a negative COVID test within 3 days before you traveled to the state of Massachusetts. I had to fill out a form before I went, and I thought it was interesting because I thought, well, of course there was a large fine that was connected to that, so I wasn't going to gamble on that. And I tend to not want to ever break the rules on things like that. So I made sure I did everything I needed to do before I went. But I thought, how are they going to enforce this? And what was interesting is when I arrived into Logan Airport, they actually had what they called travel ambassadors that were at the gate, where they didn't ask me to see the proof of my negative COVID test, but they did ask if I had filled out the paperwork, if I had and if I had the copy with me. So I think since then some of that has been lifted, but I've seen it come back in other states. So I think that's really where that waiting for CDC guidelines and really how they've changed has come up. So for future bookings, when we asked innkeepers that you've received since COVID began, how far are guests traveling? And certainly that one tank getaway within 150 miles is the predominant guest that's traveling right now. We see this trending not only with what innkeepers are saying, we see this trending in keywords that that are being bid on for different AdWords. So many of the searches involve the terms near me with it. So, B&Bs near me, hotels near me, restaurants near me, everything is around what is the closest to me and, are they open? What are they serving? So one thing I think that is important to also point out is when we ask travelers, what mode of transportation are you using when you are traveling? Clearly, cars are the highest at 84%. A lot of that has to do with gas prices, but we have seen an increase in the number of travelers who are saying they're traveling by airplane. And that has to do, I think, with the cost of airline travel. A lot of airlines are offering discounted flights, which makes it a lot more affordable to go like I did, a couple of weeks ago. I think my round trip flight was like $84 to go to Florida from Austin. And there are airlines that are still blocking the middle seat that Delta, I know for sure, is still doing that. So I think there's a lot of things that have been put into place that are making travelers feel more comfortable. And it's more accessible for those that are comfortable to travel by air. So it's important right now, and I've been thinking about this a lot, to target your guest and focus on that 150-mile radius, right? So yeah, your target customer, anyone who has money, sure. But if you take the opportunity to really understand where your opportunity is and where those travelers are, then you might be able to increase that conversion. So one of the things that I've been thinking of here at bnbfinder that I'm going to start testing in a lot of our marketing is going in and looking at where are these travelers located, and then sending out specific campaigns to the travelers in those destinations for properties that are located in those destinations. So example, we did a blog article about one tank getaways from Austin. We have another one coming out for one tank getaways from New York. But what I didn't do the last time that we sent out that blog was I didn't specifically target it to travelers who live within a 150-mile radius of that destination. So I think it'll be really interesting. I mean, when I send that out to the mass traveler database that we have, you know, will we see a higher conversion if we just really focus on those travelers that are located in that 150-mile radius? And you have all of that information in your property management software. So if you haven't tested a really targeted campaign, I encourage you to do so. And I'd love to hear what kind of results that you see from that, and if you see that you did in fact increase your conversion by focusing on those travelers. So I added this in our fall presentation just because I thought it was so timely for where everyone's at. And you know, the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. So with travelers wanting to know, what have you done to implement new safety measures? What has your inn or B&B done to respond to the traveler needs? You know, we might think that we've communicated it well, but is that just the illusion that we have, or have we actually done so? So I want to share a couple of important points of what travelers are looking for. So when we ask them for future travel, where are you more likely to book your stay? We're seeing this trend continue with travelers looking at staying at inns and B&Bs, vacation rentals, and certainly hotels have increased, and I think that's due in part to a lot of the communication that they've put out about safety measures that they've put into place. When we ask travelers what's most important when booking lodging, that flexible cancellation policy, number one. So I wanted to tie that back into what innkeepers and what all y'all have been saying about what you're doing to be able to implement a more flexible cancellation policy. And clearly sanitized shared spaces, sanitized linens. And when I looked at the other category again on this, almost every single one of them said face masks. And not just face masks for guests, but face masks for staff. And you know, I would like to think that, oh, you know, maybe there'll be some day when, you know, we don't have masks and it's not a constant thing, but I think it's going to be a long time before that changes and that people feel comfortable traveling without those. And I can say, after my visit to Florida and wearing my mask for pretty much 3 days straight, that it almost just became a part of me. And I could get back to my friend's place and, you know, would be back and would be talking about the day, and I'd still have my mask on, and then I'd realize, oh, I still have my mask on, I don't have to keep wearing it, I can take it off, you know, with my 2 friends that I've been with. So definitely something that is important. And hand sanitizer. This is something that changed from the last survey, where travelers didn't really rate that as high as something that's important. And I believe the reason for that is because we've really been trained to constantly be looking for that hand sanitizer station, whether it's at the supermarket or if it's in a public restroom or if you're out at a restaurant or whatever it might be. Everybody is constantly reaching for that hand sanitizer. So a couple of things that I want to point out is I saw this picture came up in a newsletter from the industry, and I thought it was brilliant. And I haven't seen this yet, but there was a hotel group that started to put the photo of their staff person with their name tag. And I thought this was genius, because when you think about how much expression comes across when we don't have the mask on and we can actually see each other's faces, it's a completely different experience than talking to someone with a mask on. So I think this is just something, you know, I think back to, you know, if I was still at the end of the round barn, what might I be testing? And this is 100% something that I would do, because without a mask, they can still see your face. Why not put it on there? And I just think that that guests would really respond well to be able to see your entire face. Innkeepers are definitely, and I'm going to show you this on some results, supplying hand sanitizer stations. I did actually look earlier today at, and I'm going to reach out to AIHP and some of the other state associations to see if anybody has done a partnership with a sanitizing station group, because you can find some of these standalone sanitizers for $100 a piece, and if you have one of those at your front door or something like that, there might be some more affordable ways for you to provide the hand sanitizer to guests. So any ideas or things that you've done that have been creative for that, we would love to hear. So for properties that are busy right now despite COVID, we ask them, what do you attribute that to? And certainly there are parts of this that are out of your control, right? So if you're a property that isn't in a remote location, there's really nothing that you can do about that right now. Properties who say they offer guests private entrances, awesome. If you don't have private entrances, again, that's a little bit of a challenge. There was a property, and I didn't put it in here, and I just thought about it. I'll share it with you when I send out the notes. They were in Michigan, and they had decided that what they were going to do is build these, I wouldn't call them tiny homes, but in the back of their inn, they built what is similar to like a Norwegian fishing hut, and they built them around the back in a semicircle, and they put a fire pit in the middle. And they had increased not only their occupancy, but they increased the interest in guests wanting to come and stay at their property. And they had put local folks who were out of work, they had provided them work to be able to come in and build these. And I'll send you the article, because I just thought it was such a creative way to be able to answer to that need. But far and wide, I stand by the most important is thoroughly communicating all of your safety measures and what you've done to respond to COVID. So when we asked guests, when we asked innkeepers, what are you providing? 95% of you said you are providing hand sanitizer, of course, sanitized linen. So all of the things that your guests said were important that I showed to you previously, you all are supplying that for the guests. So how are you communicating that? And, it's really been fascinating to me to be able to see the response. I can't say necessarily that I'm surprised, but when I say fascinated, I mean how quickly the industry responded with the web developers and making sure that they came up with a way for you to be able to communicate through your website of what you've done for your updates and what you've done for your safety measures. At bnbfinder, I know the majority of the folks on the call today are members. So if you haven't taken the time to log into your dashboard, I highly recommend that you do that. It will only take you a few minutes. If you need help, we can get you connected with Bo, who manages our customer service, and we can walk you through it. But it's very easy for you to go in and add in your safety measures. And what that does is you can add an additional link to your website. For those of you who do have a page on your website, like the 1825 in here, you can now link out to that page from your bnbfinder listing, and that banner will come across the top of your listing. And what's great about that is it provides an additional link. Again, we never want to own that relationship with the guest. We want to send it all to you and to your website. And then in addition to that, you can add in specific safety features, and anything that you're doing at your property, you can then list. It's very similar to, for those of you who participate in TripAdvisor, if you haven't gone in and updated it there, they have something similar, and pretty much every site now that you're listing on should have something like that. You can also update on bnbfinder in your in your description. We've expanded the amount of copy that you can have in that first paragraph about the inn. So if you want to put in some additional specifics in there, you certainly can do that. And then on your listing, if I go back actually here, you can't see it on this one. I'm going to show it to you on another property where we show those safety features. So when we looked at some of the, again, other and additional suggestions that properties who participated in the survey, some of the things that they're doing that is above and beyond or something that they've changed. So Courtwood Inn, who's been in business for 6 years, they're up in Murphy's, California. They added a charcuterie dinner, and not only, I didn't add it just because I love charcuterie, it's one of my favorite things. Before it came popular, I've always loved it, but I thought it was such a great idea because, you know, it's something that you can have, you can wrap it, they can take it up to their room, and it's, you know, it's hearty enough where you can have some wine and you can have charcuterie, and they can include that in the package. Also added VIP anniversary, birthday packages, things like that. So whatever it is that you're doing, make sure, again, that you're updating your listings. So I mentioned the safety measures, and you can see it here. I don't know if you can see when I draw on there, but that's where it shows up on your listing. So when you go in and you tick off those boxes, then all of those safety features will show on your listing. And when you're, again, tying it back to the communication, I haven't seen this yet, and please, if you have done so, shoot us an email, because I would love to use it as an example, because we know that the role of photography has always been important in our industry. And, you know, not only because people don't read the 3 rules of marketing, but now with COVID, really being able to include photography that answers to the different things that you've done to improve the guest experience during this time. So if you have changed, you know, your dining room layout, or pictures of your staff with masks, or whatever it is, if you have things like that that you can share, I would love to be able to see that. If you aren't marketing, is it because of finances? So when we asked properties, you know, are you tapping into available assistance? Several of you have taken advantage of the different programs that are available. There's been a lot of information that's been shared out there, but I included this because, you know, there are properties that are, you know, have recently just been sold, and new owners, we're seeing this every day come through with the different inn consultants. So inns are continuing to sell. What's challenging is for some of those properties that have just opened, you know, they don't quite qualify because they don't have the tax records to support some of that. So, you know, there are some challenges in that. So, of course, Jerry Maguire isn't the only one waiting for him to be shown the money, but all of you are waiting for that too. So more than half of the travelers, you know, we think about, are they going to have the money to travel? That's the first thing that we think of. And when we ask travelers, are you expecting your job to be impacted, or has it been impacted? Clearly 41% have had their job affected. Still half have not, or they're retired. So there's that I wanted to share out. When we asked properties if you're changing their marketing, 42% said here, 46% no change or haven't changed their marketing. And when you're not changing your marketing, I always think, you know, why is it? Or if you have, what are you doing to change your marketing? And certainly staying stagnant and not doing anything is not really a good approach, right? Because now is the time to be able to start to get creative. And that's why I really want to share some of these ideas that other inns are doing, and for inspiration and for anything else. And 21% of the inns that responded are offering new specials and packages. Deals and discounts don't have to just be a discount off of your room rate. It can be a value add. There's a lot of different things that you can include in that. Certainly more properties looking into book direct sites, OTAs, blog writing, etc. So when we asked guests what was important, one of the pieces that I didn't include in those previous slides because it's just too much information is that breakfast options are still equally important, of course. Tim, I know, has heard from a lot of properties who might no longer be offering breakfast as an option at the inn. I know a lot of inns have adapted it to where either it's an in-room breakfast or a to-go breakfast is offered as well. So when we think about that getting creative and the specials and the packages, there's a couple of ones that were shared with me that I wanted to share with you as well. So Wicker Park Inn is...
Hey, sorry to interrupt real quick. I was just going to say quickly to everybody, I know we are at the end of the hour. We have more information for you, but just in case you guys need to leave, I would just reiterate that we will send you the recording so you can hear the rest.
Yes.
But please stick with us because there's lots more to talk about, and so we'd love that. But just want to let you know that we know we're at the end of the hour. Hope you can stay. If not, we'll send you the recording too.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, we've got a handful of slides left, and we're going to do a little update too on the things that we've been working on. So, let me just hop back to that one. So Wicker Park Inn, they've been in business for 16 years, and they just put in a breakfast in bed package, which again might think like, oh, breakfast in bed, you know, haven't we always done that? If it's anything that you're doing that's new, and we know that that's what travelers are looking for, putting it out there, talking about it. I think what's also important here is that, you know, they make it very clear that it's an additional charge, and travelers are, you know, going to be willing to pay that if that's something that makes them more comfortable on their stay. Devonfield Inn, they've been in business for 2.5 years. They're located out in Western Mass. They have taken advantage of the additional acreage that they have. And this is something that they started to do in the fall and are going to continue to do this through the spring, and created some maps for hiking and things like that. Beechwood Inn, I've been in business for 21 years. They've now started wine tasting. We've seen a lot of different picnic packages, appetizers at the fire pit. And one of the things that I wanted to point out here is that they have also gone in and updated their listings. They've updated those experiences, again, so that travelers can see that these are things that they're now offering. And some other great ideas that I saw in here, and we're starting to see a lot of these types of things trending as well, is taking advantage of these platforms that have been improved on over the last several months. So Old Square Inn is now doing live demos on Facebook, cooking classes. There's a property who's offering video classes for interior design relating to homes like their B&B. This property that has recently gotten a new puppy, we know that traveling with pets is extremely popular. I just traveled with my pet over the weekend, and continuing to do other streaming events. This one I love, dried flower arrangements, cooking classes, anything like that to get it out there and to be able to offer it. So for properties that aren't as busy as they typically are, what's the reason? Clearly, yes, again, as I mentioned earlier, there are still state guidelines and different regulations that are constantly changing that lead to that. So if you are accepting reservations or accepting future reservations, I saw this a lot in the other feedback as well, letting guests know where you're at, what you're doing. This was from Aldrich House from a few months ago, and they've just done such a great job at sharing what they're doing, ongoing, how their guests can get involved, and really reminding guests, if you aren't ready to book, keep us in mind for future travel, and just keeping that dialogue open and ongoing with your guest. So with bnbfinder and what we're doing to continue to expand our reach and what we're doing to try and elevate the category of B&Bs and professionally run inns, there are several things that we're doing. Tim's going to share some of the things, and I'm going to highlight a couple of the marketing pieces. So we continue to work with Wheel of Fortune, and in the registration for the for the survey, at the end, I put in a question. If you are a member of B&B Finder and you have video footage, I am constantly looking for new ins to participate. And this is such a great opportunity because not only is Wheel of Fortune, one of the #1 TV shows in its time slot. I think they said if it was actually in prime time and competed with the other primetime shows, that it would be #1. And we see that reflected in our traffic every time that we're featured. And we'd love to be able to offer this opportunity out. So if you have video footage and you want to participate, the only commitment from you is that you offer a 6-night, 7-day stay. And if someone does win the prize, they have to provide 4 different weeks that they want to stay. If none of those work for you, then the guest provides another 4 weeks. And then you can choose which one, where to plug them in. And then B&B Finder covers the airfare for those guests. And that's how we partner together. And there's a 30-second spot that will feature your inn on the show along with B&B Finder. So it's just a great opportunity to get a really wide reach out to travelers who might not have thought of staying at a B&B. The B&B Finder Awards is something that it was my goal to be able to launch those, and I put in here the B&B Finder Breakfast Tournament of 2020 because it was my absolute goal to be able to launch those before the end of the year. And we had some other competing priorities, some of the things that I'm going to share with you. So these are awards that we're working on for Q1 of 2021 that we will be launching. So stay tuned for those to be coming. And with everything that's happening and with so much information that's going along, it's a lot to keep up with. So if you haven't taken the time to set up a Google alert, I highly recommend that you do. It's very easy to go in and do it. You can set it up if you want to set it up for, just bed and breakfast or your bed and breakfast name. Absolutely, you should have that. That way Google will send you an email either daily, weekly, whatever you'd like. And that way you can see what's happening with other inns. And then also it's a great way to keep up with what's happening in the local media as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Tim to share some of the things that we've been doing. For those of you who aren't familiar with B&B Finder, a little brief history and how we can help ongoing.
Perfect. So thanks, Janice. I think a lot of you guys know, we have a long history in this industry. Our core team here at B&B Finder, Janice, Bo, myself, Eric Goldreyer, between just 4 of us here, we have over 50 years of experience operating bnbfinder.com. And so we're trying to take everything that we learned at bnbfinder.com and apply it to B&B Finder, but apply it better. We certainly received a lot of feedback from our members over the years at bnbfinder.com. So we have lots of ideas how we can be better here at B&B Finder. Namely, the big one is our commission-free model. And so, hopefully you guys are seeing that from us and hearing that from us. We did just announce, I guess it's been about 2 months ago now, Janice, that our gift cards, we've abandoned what historically had been a 15% commission on those gift cards for our members. And now instead, it's just a 3.5% processing fee, which, covers our cost to charge the traveler for their gift card and is similar to what you might pay to process a credit card from a guest directly. And so that was done in an effort to encourage more of our members to participate in the program, opening it up to more travelers. But it's not stopping there. Here in 2021, we have plans to launch an online reservations program as well that we also intend to be commission free. And we think that's going to help us in a lot of ways, namely, with it being a commission-free program, you're not going to be, as an innkeeper, as reluctant to give us your peak dates so that travelers can find and book you through B&B Finder. Because if it's commission-free, why wouldn't you? And so we think that's going to help us attract more travelers to you guys, because instead of you going to sites like Expedia or Booking.com, where historically you find all this distressed inventory, or as you might call it, the junk inventory that may not sell otherwise, we think that by being a commission-free model, you'll want to share all your inventory with us. Travelers will be able to find your inventory through us, and then just book with you directly, feeling that that's the best experience for the traveler, but also the best experience for you. If I guess book through Expedia and I need to adjust my reservation with you as a traveler, I might end up, who knows, calling, some call center somewhere in the world who's going to help me, try to adjust my booking with you, when really it would just be a lot better if I was able to call you directly and work directly with you on how to best, navigate the changes to my reservation. So we're very, very excited about that. And then, as Janice kind of alluded to, we got the company in April 2019, and since then it's been this, climb back into the rankings with Google. And so we are seeing a tremendous amount of progress there. And it's translating to more and more traffic for us, which means more and more traffic for you. But we are now, first in Google for all the biggest and broadest keyword searches. So bed and breakfast, B&B, B&B, like Janice was talking about earlier. B&B near me is a real popular one these days. And I think we're maybe second or third organically in Google when it comes to that, which is ahead of all the big OTAs. So we're very proud and very excited for that. And we're just continuing to optimize everything in terms of our more localized SEO. So we've been adding in conjunction with our team of about 15 professional writers, we're adding a tremendous amount of unique content to bnbfinder that talks all about your destination and gives the traveler all kinds of wonderful information on what they might do in your area, what there is to see, what are the restaurants to check out, what are the sites to see, all of it. And this is all being done, with a very heavy eye on SEO. So you can see, kind of like Janice has here, the photo and this, brief little description of Massachusetts up here at the top. But on our state pages and all of our destination pages, if you go down to the bottom, you're going to find a lot more information that has all kinds of embedded links to our members' pages, talks about all the great things to do. And this is all brand new content, never before seen on the internet. We've created this content, and so we're doing this for all the destinations on our site where we have members. And then we're going to backfill in all the destinations where we have traveler demand, but don't yet have members, in hopes of attracting members. And so this is a key component in our rise in the rankings with Google, and our ability to send you more traffic. And it's going according to plan. It's working great. So we're really proud about the efforts there. But it's not just that. It's not just the SEO. There's other things that we're adding to our site that are going to continue to help us even further on that front, as we ultimately become your largest source for direct and commission-free bookings. So things like adding like an image map to our site to make it easier for Google to see all the amazing images that we have on our site and give us better rankings because of that. We've also added I guess now about 10,000 property listings on our site from past members of bnbfinder, properties that we know exist that are professionally operating inns and B&Bs, because as we're attracting all these travelers to our site, we need them to find this great selection of properties. And so by adding these free listings to our site, we can show them these great properties and hopefully send these properties some business to where they come back to us and say, hey guys, I'm getting business from you guys, and I didn't even know I was a part of you, and how can I find more business? And so we're hopeful for that too. But it's been a long slog. Obviously, the pandemic certainly has kind of shifted our directions in certain ways here over the past year. But it's also allowed us to really, really focus on all of this and get really great, I would say, at improving our SEO to improve the amount of traffic and visibility that we are able to give you. And so I guess I would just kind of finish there by saying, to all of you guys who are members, boy, we really appreciate it. And I would just express to you how much we value working with you and how committed we are to what we are doing here and our end goal, that being your largest source for direct and commission-free bookings. Janice and I can tell you, are having a lot of fun doing this. It's not always fun, right? Because you hear some, I would say some awful stories out there too, some properties who are faced with some real challenges in all of this. But you also hear some really, encouraging stories out there too. And it just kind of, I would say, solidifies, galvanizes our, interest in what we are doing here, because you do hear all these stories and you hear how everybody's situation is different, but how collectively we all want the same thing. And that's, to be the preferred choice in lodging, but also to be able to operate in a way that isn't, based on these, let's say, much larger companies telling us how to run our businesses. We want you to be able to operate how you want to operate, because that's part of why you got into this business. And so we think in being a commission-free model, that it gives you guys those tools and gives you that flexibility to roam and be who you are. So we're having a lot of fun doing it, and we appreciate having you guys as members with us, and we can't wait for all of our futures together here, because it's all heading in the right direction. I think you're muted, Janice.
Yep, I got you. Yeah, that's perfect. And I think you really covered a lot of the questions that we had that were when folks had registered that they had. So that's great. One of the things that I would also mention is, staying informed as much as you can. We know that Acorn and AIHP and Pi, before they merged with AIHP, created the Book Direct website. I highly recommend, if you haven't been on there, going on and signing up for their newsletter, just to stay informed. They're the ones that are really keeping up on what's happening with some of the legislative things that have happened, with Google and other things. So definitely, take a few minutes to sign up for that, to stay informed there. And in addition to that, I know it's a lot, and I know, just keeping your properties going every day and pivoting and really learning again how to restart everything and to keep the engines going. So when travelers do come back, it's a lot. So I always, since this has started, and I've always used this as a recommendation for properties, is just to think about when you go to conference. Remember when we were actually together physically, there are some great virtual conferences that are happening now. And I know AIHP, our National Association, is having their conference this month. CABI, the California Association, had theirs last month. And we have a events page on our site that will list those. And if you haven't attended a virtual conference yet, I recommend that you do. There's also going to be I think it's called the Midwest Conference. It's being hosted in Missouri, and we're going to have an email out for that here soon. But really what it comes down to is, when you go to conference and you automatically get overwhelmed because there's so much information, pick a couple of the things and just focus on those, accomplish those, and then move on. So if it's going in and updating your safety measures on bnbfinder, set that as a goal, go in, do it, and then, move on to the next thing. Because, there are so many things that you can do, but still only so much time with everything else that you have to manage. So anything that we can do to help with that process, please let us know. Because, Tim and I haven't been in this industry pretty much our entire careers for no reason. We're here because we genuinely care, and we're passionate about helping all of you continue to be successful. So please reach out and let us know what we can do to help. And I don't see that there are any questions right now that have come through. So if there's anything else that comes through, or if there's a question that came in from the registration that we didn't touch on, we'll be sure to include that when we send out the recording. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for taking this extra time with us. And I cannot wait till the day that I get to see you all in person again. It will be long overdue, and it will be a great reunion.
I echo everything Janice said, and just I look forward to seeing everybody too. And thanks to all of you for being here today. We really appreciate your interest, and again, we appreciate you guys being members with us. So thank you.
Absolutely. We miss you. We'll see you soon.
All right. We'll see you guys.